Question: what do blueberries, strawberries, bananas, and chocolate milk all have in common? They all freeze dry awesome, and they all make good smoothie ingredients. And after freeze drying, they can all be turned into a powder. We can mix all of these ingredients together to make a freeze dried smoothie. So we're gonna do that right now. We're gonna freeze dry in a medium freeze dryer today, so we're gonna fill up 4 medium trays. The easiest way to do this, and I think the best way to do this, is really just to puree all of these ingredients and then put them onto a freeze dryer tray. And it's best to do that in a high-powered blender. I also like to add a little fiber in my smoothies, so I usually use kale or spinach, and I do the same exact thing. I actually run the spinach and the kale with a little bit of water, and I make a paste, I spread it on the tray, and then after it's freeze-dried, you have a nice kale or spinach powder. The strawberries have enough water in them, you shouldn't need to add water. I'm gonna count the strawberries as I add them in. You may notice that I'm not chopping them at all, and I'm actually leaving the stems on for a little bit of extra greens. So I did 20 strawberries in the first one. We'll see how far that gets us. Try 20 more. Well, that was 60 strawberries. We're right up to the brim. I'm not sure that I want to go any higher. Well, I want to leave some room for expansion if that's going to happen. Let's do some blueberries next. This is about 3.5 pounds of blueberries. I think that should be good for the medium tray. Our 3.5 pounds made just about 6.5 cups of blueberry juice. And this stuff looks really good. So I'm going on to pre-cut parchment. I would recommend doing pre-cut parchment or silicone. Doing high sugar fruits and things like that, some of them just like to stick to the bottom of these stainless steel trays, and you end up losing a good portion of the product by sticking to the tray because you can't get it off even if you scrape it. And this blueberry goo is exactly that. Next, I'm going to do some bananas. I would like to see how many bananas it actually takes to fill a tray, and I will weigh all of these ingredients before we put them in the freeze dryer. That way we have at least a baseline idea of what things weigh. Like a tablespoon of banana powder weighs X amount. This was 10 bananas, and I think that should be just about the perfect amount. I did add a little bit of water to the bananas. There's not quite enough moisture content in the banana to make a puree. I believe I added about half a cup. I try and add as little water as possible because it's kind of counterproductive to the freeze drying process. You can also squeeze a little bit more the less water you put in. So 10 bananas, that was right up to the top. That actually gives me a good idea. 10 bananas and 10 portions using the tray dividers. This should give us an exact amount, and we can divide this by 10 now, and since everything has been smoothed evenly, it'll be an even weight all the way across the board. That'll give us a good measurement on what a banana weighs in powder. Last, we're gonna do 6 cups of chocolate milk. I'm gonna get a weight on this with 6 portion dividers. This is 2162 grams. 10 pureed bananas weigh 1910 grams. Our 3.5 pounds of blueberry puree. This stuff is actually really cool. It's almost like jelly. You could probably use it like jelly if you really wanted to. That weighs 2048 grams. And last, our 60 strawberries. 2356 grams. This recipe, as well as over 300 other recipes, can be found at the Freeze Drying Cookbook. New recipes are added every week, as well as tips and tricks. Our first 100 recipes can be found in our hard copy cookbook, as well as tips and tricks found in the Freeze Drying Handbook. These books can be purchased at freezedryingsupplies.com, along with all of the other accessories that you've seen in this video. We're using Harvest Right freeze dryers today. If you'd like to check out specs and pricing link for Harvest Right, just go down in the description of this video. You can follow our affiliate link. That way, if you actually purchase a freeze dryer through our affiliate link, it benefits this channel greatly. It also benefits our social media groups, which can be found at Retired at 40's Freeze Drying Group on Facebook and MeWe. There's tens of thousands of members on there, and you can use the search function magnifying glass to find threads and topics and members and all kinds of different things, all kinds of answers to your questions. And before we get back to our freeze-dried smoothie, I'd like to invite you to join our YouTube channel, Live Life Simple, and all you need to do is click on this rocking chair down in the corner. That'll subscribe you. You can click the bell to get future notifications every time a video comes out at Sundays at 8 a.m. And if you like the content we're providing, let us know by giving us a big old thumbs up. Well, that was a long cycle. Do not be surprised if this cycle takes you 60, 70 hours. Something about fruit, and I guess mainly because it has a large moisture content, really takes a long time, especially if you do not pre-freeze, which I did not on this because I wanted to see how long it would actually take without it. So my cycle took about 68 hours, which is a very long time, not the average cycle for sure. And even though it took a long time, everything turned out beautifully, and it did just what you want it to do, which is shrink just enough that you can just pull this out in one section. This is going to make it a lot easier for cleanup. It's going to make it a lot easier to powder. It's going to make it a lot easier to bag up and store. One thing that I think is very important, because this is so thick and the water content is extremely high, is to run this with a thermal camera, or at least test it for dryness with your fingers. No cold spots. This stuff is notorious for just having little spots of cold spots, which mine actually surprisingly does. Mainly this whole strawberry, it feels like it's done on the top, but it's still 50 degrees in the center. So I'm gonna run some extra time on this. Another thing you might need to do is actually stop the cycle and defrost it, because this ice buildup is so much, there's so much water content in here, that it just helps if you just pull everything out, maybe put it in the freezer for a second, defrost your freeze dryer for about an hour or so, and then just kind of carry on. And if you ever need to start your cycle completely over, you can actually just start from the main screen, and then every time you press this leaf button right here, it will skip to the next part of the cycle. So you can go from, you can skip over the 15 minutes of freezing, skip over the freezing, skip over the vacuum freezing, you can go right into drying. And be aware that if you don't do this properly and you don't know what cycle it really should be in, then you could actually do damage to the freeze dryer. So keep that in mind. All right, let's get an after freeze dried weight on these. The strawberries were definitely the ones that were holding us up. Just like if you do sliced strawberries too, it seems like they take forever. They also rehydrate very fast. Something about the texture of them. So our final weight for the strawberry is 886 grams. 10 bananas after freeze drying, 952 grams. Blueberries, 950 grams. And the chocolate milk, 894. We'll put together a recipe, and then we will put together some smoothies. And the trick to getting a powder of anything is to run it through a food processor, because we want the finest powder possible. That's going to really give us the best chances for rehydration. And this will probably be a good reference in the future. I got 5 bananas. The powder equaled about a cup. Blueberries were about 1.5 cups. Chocolate milk condensed down to about 1 cup, so that's interesting. And then the strawberry condensed down to about 2 cups. What I think is so cool about this whole thing is that the 24 cups that we had in the medium condensed down to all of this powder that's highly concentrated. The banana powder is super sweet. It doesn't take much. And we'll kind of figure out what we have here as far as comparisons, like 3 strawberries equals, 3 teaspoons or whatever. So there's about 1 million different flavors and combinations you can make with this. I'm going to show you what we came up with. I'll also give you the equivalents from powder to what it would be like if it was not freeze dried. So first thing I think we're going to do is the strawberries. We figured about 5 strawberries is what you would want in the smoothie. So that's 2 tablespoons of strawberry powder, and that would equal to about 3/4 of a cup of whole strawberries. And next we'll do our blueberries. Blueberries are the same thing. 2 tablespoons of powder would be about 3/4 of a cup of whole blueberries. Next we're going to do the equivalent of 1 banana, which would be 3 to 4 tablespoons of banana powder. And then we're going to do kale powder also. If you don't want to do kale powder, you can just leave this out. We're going to do 1 tablespoon of kale powder. A little bit of this goes a long ways. And then last, to get 2 cups of chocolate milk, we're going to do 2.5 tablespoons plus 2 cups of water. That should give us about 16 ounces of liquid, and that should be about the perfect smoothie size. There's all our powder. We'll add our 2 cups of water. We'll give it a shake. What's the best part about it?
The blueberry.
The blueberry kind of overpowers everything?
Yes.
Well, it looks like the smoothie gave him plenty of energy for jiu-jitsu practice. In the meantime, remember, live life simple. We'll catch you next week.